Hello, boys and girls, and welcome to Movie Goodness, where we examine life through cinema here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and welcome everyone to Movie Goodness. This is a bittersweet episode of Movie Goodness. Reason being, Movie Goodness is the flagship show here at the KB Radio Network. This is the show that this network was built on, and all the other shows are spin-offs or branches off of this tree, and I love doing Movie Goodness. Always have loved doing Movie Goodness throughout my time of podcasting. And as of late, I haven't been doing a lot of Movie Goodnesses. It's been kind of sparing. And a lot of that is because I just haven't been inspired to do anything or to talk about a certain thing, because a lot of the things that I normally would talk about would come from a place of anger. And I always wanted to kind of break from the norm, have this show be, have a little levity, if you will. And, that's why we do it the way we do it. We'll talk about certain pop culture issues or cultural issues or political issues and mix it up with a movie review. And that kind of breaks the levity. And lately, I just have not been in the mood. And for a lot of obvious reasons, we know that presidential election didn't quite go the way that I was hoping it would go. I know there's a lot of people out there that are cheering, screaming from the mountaintops. They're happy, and God bless y'all, but not me. And other things that has been going on, around my life. And I'm a blessed individual. I don't like to complain too much, but I'm happy in the general sense. But there's a lot of things going on around me that's kind of disturbing, and I really just hadn't been pumped up or excited to talk about certain issues or popular trending things that's going on in the world. But this particular show, and what makes this particular episode of Movie Goodness bittersweet, I'm happy to be back doing Movie Goodness in its natural form. But it's bittersweet because we're talking about something pretty depressing, and it's nothing to cheer about or joke around about. This is something serious because somebody died. No matter if you disagree with this person's method of doing their job or politics or whatever the case may be, nobody deserves to be gunned down in the street. And of course, we're talking about the incident that took place on December the 4th in New York City when the CEO of UnitedHealthcare was gunned down, shot and killed outside of a New York Hilton hotel in Manhattan. And this just blew my mind when this happened. No pun intended. It was so like weird to me that this took place. And the thing that really ran through my mind as I was watching this story on the news and diving into the internet and trying to find out some information about what was going on, I was like, boy, people are really starting to lose their mind. And I think that it's only going to get worse. And that's the scary part about all this. Knowing what's to come politically in this country in the next month or so, it's scary. It's very scary. And of course, I'm not saying this is tied up in politics per se, the death of Brian Thompson. It's just weird. It's like, okay, people are willing to go to these extremes. They're broken. People are broken. People are just desperate and don't care anymore. And this particular instance, it's even scarier because this was so thought out and planned and executed that is like, man, this was like a movie. And that was the first thing that ran across my mind. One of the first things that ran across my mind, like, man, this is like a movie. I mean, this dude, whoever he is, at the time of this recording, he hasn't been caught yet. He planned this out to a T and got away so far. Eventually, he's gonna get caught. There's no there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Probably by the time I release this episode, he'll be caught. But it was just crazy. And we're gonna go through the timeline. We're gonna break down exactly what took place, and then we're gonna review a film that just fits into this subject like a round peg, you should say. The 2002 Denzel Washington film, John Q. Similar, not the same plot, but similar. And it deals with healthcare and what Denzel Washington as a character, the extremes he took because of healthcare. And this is basically what this assassin did. He took matters into his own hands. But let's go through the timeline surrounding the assassination of Brian Thompson on December the 4th, the CEO of UnitedHealthcare. He was shot and killed outside the New York Hilton midtown in Manhattan. He was in town to attend an annual investors meeting at the UnitedHealth Group, the parent company of UnitedHealthcare. And authorities believe the attack was not random, and anybody with any sense or watched at least one episode of Law and Order knows that this was not a random attack. And the authorities, the police, everybody involved, they're investigating it as a targeted killing. And so the shooting occurred early in the morning, and the suspect, described as a white man dressed in dark clothes, fled the scene and has not been apprehended as of now. Thompson was the CEO since April of 2021. His family reported that he received threats in the past. So this is something that he was dealing with before this took place on December the 4th. Now whether all those threats came from this one individual, I doubt it, because everybody's upset with their health care. I used to have UnitedHealthcare years ago before the company I worked for switched to a different health plan. But UnitedHealthcare, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful to the Thompson family. I grieve with them. They are in my thoughts and prayers. And this has nothing to do with Brian Thompson or his family. This has to do with UnitedHealthcare. It stinks. That sucks. I mean, UnitedHealthcare is not good. At least it wasn't. I forgot how long ago it was. It was over 10 years ago, but it was not good. I was so happy when my job switched to a different healthcare provider, and they're not much better. Let's not get it twisted. They're all trash at its core, but it was better. It's better, I should say, than UnitedHealthcare. But to jump back into this case here, Thompson, he was the CEO of UnitedHealthcare, the insurance arm of the UnitedHealth Group, since April of 2021. As I said, his wife reported that he had received death threats in the past, saying that they were motivated basically by a lack of coverage. People were upset because the coverage wasn't good, and I can testify to that. I know a lot of people out there listening right now probably have UnitedHealthcare, and you can say that the coverage is horrible, man. It is completely trash as a healthcare provider, and I can understand the anger. I don't see. I'm not angry enough to kill the CEO of the company, but I can see where the anger for the lack of coverage comes from. Anywho's, after his death, it was reported that Thompson was facing a lawsuit against accusing him and other executives of insider trading after they reportedly stole millions of dollars of stock while the company was the subject of a federal investigation that was not disclosed to shareholders. United Health was under Department of Justice investigation since October of 2023, and insiders, including Thompson, was able to sell $120 million of personal held United Health stocks before the stock value dropped. UnitedHealthcare insures 49 million Americans and saw 281 billion with a B in revenue in the 2023 fiscal year. In 2021, Thompson was criticized in an open letter from American Hospital Association due to UnitedHealthcare plan to start denying payments for what it deemed as non-critical visits to hospital emergency rooms. Fast forwarding to the assassination of Brian Thompson. Thompson was in New York for an annual United Healthcare investors meeting, having arrived in the city on Monday, December the 2nd. On December the 4th, at around 6:45 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Thompson was walking along West 54th Street towards the New York Midtown Hotel that was hosting that meeting. He was shot by a man dressed in a black hoodie and armed with a 9mm pistol with a silencer on the tip. The killer had waited outside the building for several minutes and shot Thompson several times from approximately 20 feet away, striking him in the back and in the right calf. Police initially said that the killer fled the scene on an electric city bike, which is owned by Lyft, but the NYPD later debunked that claim. Thompson was taken to Mount Sinai West Hospital, where he was pronounced dead at 7:12 a.m. The NYPD and Mayor Eric Adams said the attack appeared to be a targeted killing and was not a random attack. A little bit about the assailant, but the little bit that we do know, because he hasn't been captured as of the time of this recording, but the suspect is described by police as a white man, approximately 6'1", wearing a black hoodie, sweatshirt and pants, with a gray backpack along with a black face mask. Police has said that he appears to be proficient in the use of a firearm from how he quickly unjammed the pistol used in the shooting. The suspect has yet to be apprehended. He has been described as an extremely camera savvy individual. The suspect appeared in New York City on November the 24th from somewhere south of the city. The suspect checked into a hotel in New York, a hostel in New York that was formerly a nursing home, and on November the 30th with a fake New Jersey ID card and paid in cash. The suspect had checked out of that hostel the previous day after staying there since November the 24th. And that lets you know everything you need to know about this fella. This was deeply planned out. Now, my only thing with that is how they know all that. You know, how did they pick all that up? But whatever. But don't know where he at or who he is. I'm pretty sure they know, they're just not releasing the information right now. But it's kind of peculiar that they released that bit of information. Y'all was able to track him all the way back before Thanksgiving. That this dude was staying at this hostel and can't find him right now. He vanished into thin air. The investigation so far with the shooter yet to be apprehended. As of December the 5th, authorities publicly released images of the suspect taken by security cameras at the Manhattan hostel. The stills appear to show a partial view of his face. You can find them online anywhere, but yeah, I've seen all that. Also, disclaimer: I should have mentioned this at the beginning of the show. I saw the video of the shooting, and I'm pretty sure everybody has seen it or seen snippets of it. But I saw the whole thing. A friend of mine sent it to me on X, I think. Uh, the link to it or whatever. I didn't know what I was clicking on, but he just randomly sent the thing, and I clicked on it. I'm like, what is this? And sure enough, that was the murder of Brian Thompson, and I'm like, man, this is brutal. And yeah, I can agree that old boy, he knows how to handle a weapon. He put in a lot of practice with handling that weapon because it jammed a few times and he quickly unjammed it. I mean, he was never flustered or rattled or, like nervous, like, oh man, shaking, like, oh man, it's jammed or nothing. He just click, click, and, on with the show. It was like, I don't know, man. It was some John Wick type assassinations. He was not phased at all. It's disturbing that somebody is that cold blooded. But while police have not recovered the weapon, they reportedly believe the shooter used a B&T Station 6 or a wheel rod, a bolt action pistol with the integrated suppression, possibly acquired in Connecticut. Once again, these police are beasts, man. They pinpointed, they don't have the weapon, but they was able to pinpoint exactly what type of weapon that is. That is some skill there, boy. The policemen, they be on their job sometimes. Now, this is where it gets really disturbing. This is where you really sit back and like, this dude was on some other stuff, man. He was on a whole nother level here. The words delay, deny, defend, and dispose were found written on the case shells, or the shell casings, I should say, at the scene. Dispose was written on a shell casing from a round that was fired into the victim, and delay was written on a live round that was ejected when the shooter was clearing the jam in his gun. And so police believe this may include a motive, as they are similar to delay, deny, and defend, a popular insurance industry phase about not paying out claims, and used as the title of a book critiquing American insurance system. Apart from the bullet casings, a water bottle, candy wrapper, and a phone were also recovered from the scene and believed to be connected to the shooter. I'm gonna say this, and I told a friend of mine this when we were talking about this the other day. The candy wrapper and the water bottle, yeah, that's probably his. That phone ain't his. This dude was too smart. He was too smart to leave the phone. That's me assuming. Now, if he was that stupid to leave behind his phone, he deserved to get caught. He needed to get caught anyway. But I mean, how do you plan this out this thoroughly, this cerebral, this cold blooded, and do something stupid like leave your phone there? Because it wasn't like he was running. He didn't run. If you saw the video, he just casually left. And I don't know. It's just weird. It's very weird how that turned up at the scene. Now, it probably is his phone, but if it is, it was a plant. It's probably something to throw people off, the police off his scent. I'm just, like I said, I'm not planning this out. I'm not a career criminal, but it just seems, I watched enough movies to know that criminals would do stupid stuff like this. And this dude, all this was thought out and planned to a T. And so it's hard for me to believe that he'll do something that careless. But, time will tell. But speaking of time, let's go through this timeline again. We're going to start all the way back. And I say all the way like it was years ago, but on November the 24th. Now, this is where it all quote unquote started, at least the execution of this plan. On November the 24th, the suspect arrived in New York City on a interstate bus from somewhere south of the city and checks into this hostel. On November the 29th, the suspect checks out of that hostel. On November the 30th, the suspect checks back in to that hostel. Approximately 5 a.m. on December the 4th, the suspect is seen at the Frederick Douglass housing development. At 6:15, December the 4th, the suspect is seen leaving the 57th Street F train subway stop. 2 minutes later, the suspect buys coffee, water, and a granola bar at the Starbucks 2 blocks away from the New York Hilton Midtown Hotel, discarding the coffee cup and the water bottle. At 6:39, the suspect arrives in front of the hotel and waits for several minutes. At 1 minute later, Thompson leaves the Marriott Hotel where he was staying the prior night, and he heads towards the Hilton. At 6:44, Thompson walks across the street towards the hotel, and the assailant shoots Thompson several times, clearing misfunctioning out of his pistol. The suspect immediately flees northbound into a pedestrian walkway. At 2 minutes later, at 6:46, police respond to a 911 call about a person being shot. 2 minutes later, at 6:48, officers arrive at the scene and found Thompson with multiple gunshot wounds to his back and leg. He is taken to the hospital. The assailant is seen traveling northbound on an e-bike towards Central Park. At 6:59, a person appears to be the suspect, or at least appearing to be the suspect, is riding a bike on West 85th Street. At 7:12 a.m., Thompson is declared dead at Mount Sinai Hospital. At 8 o'clock, UnitedHealthcare investor meetings begin. At 9 o'clock, the UnitedHealth Group CEO, Andrew Whitty, canceled the investors meeting. Now, this is where it's crazy. Y'all had that meeting for a whole hour and didn't realize the guy weren't there. I understand maybe you didn't get word that he was dead, but or was involved in the shoot, whatever the case may be. He wasn't there. It's the CEO. How you start a meeting without the CEO? But they did, and had it for an hour until they got word, and then they canceled the meeting. United Healthcare, people. And as of December the 5th, the assailant is still on the loose, so they have yet to apprehend him as of right now. This is sad, bro. This is really sad, because at the end of the day, this isn't gonna help your health plan. You know what I'm saying? I mean, killing him is not gonna change nothing, because that's the system. You know, God rest his soul, Brian Thompson, he didn't cause all this. This has been going on since the beginning of insurance. I don't care if it's health insurance, home insurance, life insurance, they don't pay out. Insurance does not pay out. Insurance is horrible. It is horrible. It is the biggest scam known to man. That and bottled water. I still to this day feel that's the biggest scam on earth. In a world, 80% water, we have to pay for it. But it is what it is. But insurance is the biggest scam there is. You mean to tell me I have a policy? I've been paying on this policy every month or every 6 months, however you pay your policies. Doing it for years, 10, 15, 20, 30 years. You have an incident. You have something come up. You go to the hospital, go to the doctor. You find out that you have a form of leukemia, cancer, diabetes, whatever the case may be, insurance, oh, we can't cover it. Oh no, that's not covered under your policy. This isn't covered under your policy. That ain't covered under your policy. Oh, you can get this medicine, but you can't get this medicine, but you need them both. Um, we only gonna pay 10% of this call. It's the most ridiculous system on earth. It's and it's just here. It's just here. It's just here in the United States. Well, maybe not just here. I'm only speaking in the terms of this is where I live and this is what I know. I do know other countries. There are multiple countries that have free health care and they don't have these problems. They don't have to worry about the CEO or the CEO or the CFO getting involved in insider trading and all this other foolishness. You know, you playing with my money. You realize you playing with people's lives, and I'm talking to insurance people here. You realize you playing with people's lives, literally. People are dying every day because they do not have proper health care, do not have proper coverage. They have insurance, but don't have proper coverage because insurance companies don't pay out. They don't care. They don't care. And I know people, and I'm not gonna go there because I don't feel like crying because this is real. I know people who did not have proper coverage from their health care and didn't have enough money to get the medicine they needed when they were dying from cancer. And that, yeah. And trust me, it hits close to home. And so, yes, it's a problem. It's a serious problem that that needs to be solved involving these healthcare companies. But does that mean we need to go out there and put bullets in CEOs of these companies? No. That's not gonna that's not gonna solve the problem, man. I get the anger. I do get the anger. I just don't get the outlet. We find a better way to express your anger. That ain't gonna do it, man. And like I said, this was as cerebral as it gets. I mean, the words that was carved. You know how much time it took for him to carve in, deny, what was it? Deny, defend, dispose, and delay. All that to carve that into those casings. That was a statement. Literally, a statement was made. And it's just the beginning. People are frustrated. People are tired. They are tired. And I think the top percentage of this country, the big wigs here, the politicians here, don't understand the level of frustration that American citizens are feeling right now. They take it as a game. And it's not a game. It's seriously not a game. But yes, this is sad. Like I said, my condolences go out to the Thompson family. Nobody deserves that. No matter how mad you are with the company he worked for, nobody deserves that. To be gunned down in the street like a dog, man. I mean, even a dog doesn't get treated like that. That's messed up. But yeah, my thoughts and prayers are with his family. But let's move on to our film. Let's move on from this depressing real life story and talk about a depressing film that came out in 2022. The thriller drama, directed by Nick Cassavetes, starring Denzel Washington, Robert Duvall, James Woods, Anne Heche, and Ray Liotta. The late great Ray Liotta is also in this film. John Q. And this film stars Denzel Washington as the title character, a man who takes a hospital room hostage in order to save his son with a heart transplant. I remember this movie ever so vividly. Um, this was after Denzel Washington won the Academy Award for his portrayal of Lorenzo in Training Day, where he was the most despicable villain in movie history up to that point. he was he I mean, you couldn't get more evil than what Denzel Washington was in Training Day. And for him, his next role to be John Q, it kind of, I mean, not kind of, but complete polar opposites of each other. Yes, this is a man who breaks the law, taking people hostage or whatnot, but he's doing it for noble reasons. Um, so his son could get a heart transplant, and his son is dying, and his insurance, the HMO, that's when HMOs were popping. Still have HMOs, but it was really bad back then. They're bad now, but they were really, really bad back then. But he couldn't get the heart transplant, so he took matters into his own hands. I was super satisfied with it back then. I'm very happy with this movie back then. I thought it was very I guess if I was doing this show back then and reviewing it, it probably would have got an A+. But time. Time. 22 years is a long time. And rewatching it, I still feel it's a good movie, but it's nowhere to the level that I thought it was back in 2022. Denzel Washington gives another great performance, which is probably the most redundant statement ever. I mean, when does Denzel Washington give bad performances? Yeah, what, you got to go back to Saint Elsewhere or something? I don't know if I ever seen Denzel Washington give a bad performance, but he gives a dynamic performance in this film. Quite honestly, if anybody else was cast in this role, this movie would be whatever. This would be like a throwaway film that you'll find on a streaming service these days. But this was a theatrical release in 2022 and ended up grossing over $100 million back then. So it just goes to show you what time will do, because this movie would never make $100 million if it was released in 2024. But this was a film that I thought it had promise. This movie has promise. And like I said, looking at it with younger eyes 20 something years ago, I thought it was very innovative and smart the way the story unfolded and how this movie was set up. How it begins with this car crash, with this woman being killed in this car crash, and you're wondering, who is this and what does she have to do with Denzel Washington taking over a hospital? But then the next scene, we kind of flash back to a couple of weeks earlier, and this is where we meet Denzel Washington, John Q, and we see his family life. He's a factory worker and whatnot. He has this young son, has his wife who's played by Kimberly Elise, and nice little setup, and I think that in order for him to get the transplant, his son to get the transplant would be like $200,000 or something like that. It's something ridiculous, and we're talking 2022 money. And I know inflation is not that much, but heck, it's a lot. That's still a lot. $200,000 for a heart transplant. My God. Jesus, you can't just tape it up or something. I mean, $200,000. But anyways, the insurance, of course, didn't cover it. Wasn't getting, no help at all. And his son is having difficulties, but the hospital required a down payment. And I think the down payment was like $75,000 or something like that. And of course, you don't have $75,000. You only have like $1,000 in their savings, and it was just horrible. And John Q's insurance wouldn't cover none of the surgery, none of it, because I think he had changed policies or something like that. He had changed policies, And due to the fact that they changed the policies, and I think he had reduced his hours at work because he has to take care of his son. And so because of those factors, they wouldn't cover. The insurance company would not cover his son's transplant. And his son has a incident where, or episode, I should say, where his heart is going out and whatnot. So he had to rush him to the hospital, and he's begging the doctors, him and his wife, and all this here. And he's had enough. He's had enough, and he takes the hospital hostage, or that wing of the hospital hostage, in order for his son to get the transplant. And the majority of the movie is Denzel Washington playing off of the negotiators, who's played by Robert Duvall, who, I mean, what a gem, man. I'm he hasn't passed away, thank God, but I miss him in films now because he's much older now. You don't see him pop up in a lot of stuff now. But he was I just love to see him pop up on screen, whatever he will pop up. And this was a good role for him, and to see him and Denzel bounce off of one another in these negotiations was really fun. The performances by everybody else in this film were really good. Even Eddie Griffin, the comedian, he was in here and he had a nice little role. It was just a good movie, good solid film. A little unbelievable. You have to suspend disbelief a lot because in real world events, I don't think this would have played out like it did. With the somewhat happy ending, with his son eventually getting the transplant by, you guessed it, the woman who had the car accident in the beginning of the film. That was the setup for that. And it all worked out at the end, but it was a little unbelievable, It was just a tad bit convenient. What they call that? What's the term for that? Ex machina or something. But yeah, other than that, I think the performances are great. Nick Cassavetes, who is a really good director, but he was also an actor. I remember him from the Wraith, that old film. I say old, Jesus, I'm old. From the 80s with Charlie Sheen with the car. He came back from the dead with the car to race people and kill them. That was awesome. He was the villain in that. He was also in Face Off, and as a director, he directed this, and he also directed what a lot of people say is the most romantic movie of all time, based off the most romantic book of all time, the Notebook. And that's a film I never watched. Not because I refused to watch it, I just never watched The Notebook. But it is celebrated as the most romantic film of all time. But one of these days, I'll probably do it for Valentine's Day. I'll probably don't hold me to it, but I'll probably do it for Valentine's Day. But in any event, yes, Nick Cassavetes, I think he did a good job here directing this film. There's a relatively small film, but with a big message and a huge purpose, with a ginormous actor in the lead role, probably the greatest actor of our generation, in a role that is slept on. I think when a lot of people talk about Denzel Washington and his performances, yeah, you bring up Training Day, you bring up Glory, you bring up Macbeth, all of these films that he's done throughout his career. And it's hard to pinpoint what's his greatest. I'll never say what his greatest is, but I can say that John Q is a slept on performance that nobody talks about. That, like, this is a awesome performance by Denzel Washington. I'm telling you, if it's not Denzel Washington in his role, this would be a whatever movie. I mean, it's no other way to describe it. It is screaming at best, but Denzel Washington giving it his all. It is it is like, mwah, beautiful, powerful performance. John Q from 2002 gets a letter grade of a B minus. Yeah, I think it's a really good film. If anything, watch it for Denzel Washington's performance. He is the lead. He carries this movie. He puts it all on his back, and he has the shoulders to carry it. Really, really good film. And a little nugget. One of the reasons he took this role, was because he had just finished Training Day, and he was so bad, and I mean bad as in good. He was such an evil character. He wanted to, his next role to be something that people would cheer for, a role that people would kind of get behind him with, because he knew that once people saw Training Day, that he would be despised. So he chose John Q because of Training Day. So we can thank Training Day for this performance in John Q. But yeah, man, that's sad. That's a sad situation. I hope that the authorities catch this guy that just brutally killed the CEO of UnitedHealthcare, Brian Thompson. Yeah, I hope they get him and get him soon. Don't let him rolling around and thinking that he got away. I don't want him to have that pleasure, because that's not right. Even though mentally we're probably on the same page as far as our hatred towards the healthcare system, but not like this. not to these extremes, sir. No, I can't sanction that. But yeah, I hope they catch this guy and catch him soon. So everybody, I hope that you enjoyed this episode of Movie Goodness as we discussed this despicable act that took place in New York City just this past week on December the 4th, the murder of Brian Thompson, and our review of John Q from 2002, starring Denzel Washington. If you would like to contact the show, you can do it by email, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You can also contact the show on all social media platforms. Just search for the KB Radio Network. Don't forget about YouTube. Subscribe to the KB Radio Network channel on YouTube and like this video if you don't mind. Don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to Movie Goodness here on the KB Radio Network. Everybody, thank you for joining me. Want you all to know that I love you. Continue to love everyone. And until we speak again, you all be blessed.